Hello, it's Jonathan of the Piano Lesson, and I thought I would continue from last week and talk some more about my collection of songs that I use to teach piano to beginners of all types, adults and young people alike, men and women, boys and girls, people of any denomination or faith, or faithless. And let's start off with some of the beginning tunes. So I actually called this book A Cup of Coffee, a Keyboard, and You. Isn't that a nice title? It actually is inspired by a song called A Cup of Coffee, a Sandwich, and You, back from the 1920s. A cup of coffee, a sandwich, and you. You can look it up. Anyway, just kind of looking at some simple songs here. Let me get the bird's eye cam here for you so you can see. I'd kind of rather you just look at the keyboard, and I can show you some musical things up here, But the melody encompasses these 5 notes, right? All of these songs. And I'm just going to kind of give you a taste of them. So here's the 5 notes that they use. And the first tune, I imagine you may have heard of many of these, but let's just start with this. Merrily We Roll Along. Sounds very much like another song, which is Mary Had a Little Lamb. This is, Merrily We Roll Along is merrily we roll along, roll along, roll along. Very close to Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. So slight difference there. You'll find that a lot of the songs that you learn are very, very similar. Now, you could the left-hand part, you'll find almost always starts on C and G. I mean, that's pretty simple. Now, of course, we can embellish that, right? I mean, the melody is E, the chord is a C major chord, C, E, G. The E is in the right hand. That's your open position chord, okay? You could play 3 notes in the left hand, but realistically, when you play a piece of piano music, you may not experience that. And we could jazz these things up. We could we could do anything like that, right? I mean, that's kind of. I mean, those are your Barry Harris chords, right? Flatted 9, right? That provides a safe space, if you will, to experiment with tunes, but you have a little bit of a melody. Now, what's the difference between those songs and Beethoven? Well, Beethoven is this. So what's the difference? We're still using the 5 notes, right? But instead of going down, we're going up, right? And we have a syncopation in here, right? 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4. That's the jazz in Beethoven, that syncopation. Still C. And I understand I'm using chords that Beethoven's not going to be using, but you know, that's the difference. You can play all these songs just using that simple, you know, left hand until you get a foothold into the song. You can also play the melody in the left hand, right? What's stopping you from doing that? Or both hands? Or two hands an octave apart? Or taking the song and trying to transpose it in G? Or alternating? You can be a little creative, right? That's the key of G, D. Right? How hard is that? You can keep going. Or whatever. So that's the first few songs in there. And then finally we have another tune, which you probably all know, When the Saints Go Marching In. Classic Dixieland jazz tune. Still uses the same 5 notes, but what's the difference? Well, the main difference is that in the Saints does something that's unusual. All the other songs start on count 1, but the Saints actually starts on count 2. 1 is the rest, oh, when, the, and then we get here, Saints, whole note, 4 counts, and then you have a quarter rest, and then it does that again. Oh, comes marching in. I mean, that's how so it's 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, rest, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's When the Saints Go Marching. 1. Oh, when the saints go marching in. So that incomplete measure, it's called an incomplete measure, all right, as opposed to a complete measure. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're starting on count 1, right? Here you're starting on count 2. That is the jazz in the piece. And this is a pretty important concept to understand in general in music. We're talking about a RHYTHMIC, a rhythmic shape, or you can talk about it as or a melodic, melodic, a melodic shape. So what do I mean by a shape? Well, a shape is where does the music begin and where does it end? It begins on count 2 and it ends on count 1. It's still 4 counts, right? There's 4 counts in a measure in this song. But the shape, and the word rhythmic has to do when and how the melody is accented. So an accent is typically when we emphasize a note. Usually we think of it being louder. Now, count 2 is louder. Why is count 2 louder? Well, because it's preceded by silence. So anything that's, the first note of any song is going to sound louder because there's nothing before it. So there is an inherent accent in the music. That's what gives it that jazz sound. You could even, now what you could have other chords other than the 1, 4, 5 chords we're talking about. You could have no chord. Typically, again, I'm not filling in that middle note. That's really all we're playing in at the very beginning level. But you could do all kinds of things. You could say D minor 7, G13, right? Or you could do D minor, G, C, and you could do like a, any of that would jazz it up. Or you could do, dominant maybe. But so you can see you can use all these tunes to build on. You can build on all these, do more complicated things. But all you need is this: C major without the E, F major without the F or without the A, and then G without the D or G without the B, and you will end up putting that in the right hand probably. But again, all the tunes that we just mentioned, they all use these notes in the melody, right? But in different ways, rhythmically in different ways, right? In this instance, though, we're skipping a note too. And that outlines a chord. Again, you'll also notice that in all of these songs, they're going to start on one of three notes. They're going to start on C, E, or G. That's just kind of the way music works. This, right, that starts on the E, or, right, that starts on the E as well. Or this starts on the C, up to the G, right? That's just kind of how it works. Let's keep going, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of these tunes. So in the next section, you add one note. So now we have that group of notes that we're gonna play. Now, there's little children's songs. I don't know. This is kind of unique to every country. Songs that you play for kids. But there's a fun little song called "This Old Man." This old man, he played knick-knack on his drum with a knick-knack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone. This old man came rolling home. Now, can we say old man now? Is that kind of politically correct? I don't know, but it's a cute little song. But it's, he played knick-knack on his drum. And don't ask me what knick-knack is. Maybe it's the sound of the drum. But going up to the A. And the A is part of the melody. So you're starting to expand your hand a little bit, all right? And the next tune, great American folk song by Stephen Foster. And Stephen Foster was a complicated man, but he sure did write some interesting songs. So, "Oh Susanna," these are kind of Civil War era songs, kind of, sort of. I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. Oh, played a wrong note. Right, that's the little tune there. Notice I'm not playing the eighth notes perfectly even. So this is actually in 2, depending on how you play it. 1, 2, 1, 2, and a 1. That's if you played faster. You could play it in 4, I suppose. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Let's see. 4. I come from Alabama. You could play it slower, but I think it's probably better in 2. I actually have it in 4 in my book, but again, you're starting on an incomplete measure. If you're playing it in 2, if you're playing it in 2, this is the symbol for cut time. Or you know what? I don't really hear it in cut time. What's the difference? Let's take a little diversion here for a moment. Because a lot of these songs are an excuse to understand meter. So what is meter? Well, meter is the general term of how the beats are accented. So here you have a steady beat, whatever that beat is. Bum, 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 ba-da-dum, bum. The beat, right? It's just kind of how you tap your foot. Bum, 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 ba-dum. Tap, tap. And that's kind of how I would tap my foot. And then you could divide that in half, right? Bum, 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 bum. You could divide that in half again. And then you could divide that in half again, right? So you could go what are we doing here? Yeah, so you could have, take each beat, right, and divide that beat into 2 equal parts and then into 4 equal parts. And I think this tune is really in 2/4 versus 2/2, right? 2/2 is expressed like that sometimes. Sometimes you see that. It's called cut time. So what's the difference? Well, other than the fact that they're similar, there's 2 counts in the measure. The beat is represented by a quarter note here. It's represented by a half note here. But the main difference is the accent. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. Accent less, accent less. That's really what I'm hearing. 1, 2, and then you have a bar line. 1, 2. That's really what I'm hearing. 1 and 2 and. Or down here, 1 E and a 2. Ba 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 bum. Ba 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 bum. Those are 16th notes, right? We got quarter notes here. We got 8th notes here. And we have 16th notes here. That's the secret of understanding rhythm, right? Rhythm and how it's notated. It's just a matter of proportion. It's like cooking in a recipe. You have to, if you have 1 cup of flour and 2 eggs, and then 2 cups of flour and 4 eggs, you have to maintain a certain proportion. The tempo, right? The speed of the music. That's something else. Is it bum, 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 or is it bum, bum? Whatever it is, it has to be steady. It has to be even, right? But the meter is how the beat is accented. And then the time signature is how the music is expressed in writing. But so this is a meter of 2, this is a meter of 2. The difference here is that count 2 is accented equally with count 1. And I don't think that's the case in this song, for starters. It's also notated differently, right? Because the beat is represented by a half note rather than a quarter note. But I think in this song, that's more appropriate. So just again, a little, another little discussion of how, the basics of music, right? When you play these Stephen Foster songs, it's kind of like going in a time machine. They put you in a different state of mind. Michael, row the boat ashore. 1, 2, Michael, row the boat ashore. Alleluia. Michael, row the boat ashore. Alleluia. That's a kind of a typical spiritual. I don't know if there's an author that's really attributed to that, but again, it's another song that starts on an incomplete measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You can play the whole song just with, essentially 3 notes and make it sound like music. Now you could fill it out, adding an extra chord. Now that's basically, what chord is that? Well, it's basically an F chord, but it has that D in it, which is the 6, and it's an inversion. And you could consider it a D minor chord because it's the same notes as the D minor 7 chord, but that's why it's really not a D minor 7. Little tunes that, little because sometimes we call them earworms. Here's another song. Again, keep in mind, all these songs use only 6 notes in the melody. Okay? So here's some Vivaldi for my Italian friends, Antonio Vivaldi, from the Four Seasons. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 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 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That's a very interesting rhythm, by the way. But, you know, little classical piece of music. 2, 3. Look at how that rhythm is developed. 4 quarters, eighth, and then it repeats. Very similar pattern with rhythms. Then it gets kind of cut in half. 4 and 1, 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1. The 8th note gets moved, the 2 8th notes get moved to count 2 rather than count 4. That's interesting composition. And then the middle part of the song is, there's that A. Four, 1, you know, that's good writing. 1, suspension. That's really a suspension. It's not another chord. It's not really. It's a suspension. So this is the C major. This is the suspension. Again, I'm just giving you a little taste of these songs so you can kind of get a sense of them. They're pretty diverse. Here's a very common tune that you hear a lot of kids learn at summer camp. Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya, 2, 3. Kumbaya, my Lord, kumbaya, 2, 3. So again, you're starting on an incomplete measure. You're starting on count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 E and a 2. You're using that dotted rhythm, which is very interesting. So now you're introducing the dotted rhythm, the long short. There's what the heck is that? Holy smokes! That was a strange moment. Here we go. Okay. So 4 and again, just outlining a triad, right? 4 and 1 E and 2, 3, 4 and, because that's a line there. 4 and 1, 2, 3. Dots by the notes. Again, the dots make the notes longer. The flags make the notes shorter. How much? Well, the dots are worth half of the notes that they're next to. The flags cut the value of the note in half. So 4 and what do we have here? Yeah, that's right. Oh, pardon me. I'm writing this wrong here. There we go. By the way, just as a little notation rule, if you write a note on a line and you have to put a dot next to it, you always put it on the space above the line, right? So this is 1 E and a 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. You're taking the beat, you're dividing it into 4 equal parts here. So this takes the same amount of time to play as a quarter note, right? That's 4 and 1 E and a 2, 3, 4 and 1. See, I'm just changing the chord. So you could have done this. Could have done that instead of this, but why did I do that? Because we have an A up here already, so I'm just using I don't want to double the notes. I want to, that sounds nicer than, it's a little thin sounding. It's not impossible, but it just, now the F, even though we're playing only 2 notes in the chord of the G chord, the root G and the third B, the melody note is F, so automatically you have a dominant chord. So all kinds of harmonies will crop up even though they're not written explicitly. Now, the next song is a nursery rhyme, kind of, you know, this. Sometimes we go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but actually it's also Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, which has a French name, which I don't remember at the moment. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, which Mozart wrote 12 variations on that theme. And if you haven't heard them, well, check it out, because it's pretty interesting. You have Mozart playing left hand, you know, that's called an Alberti bass, or you can play, you know, you can fill it out a bit. You can play in different parts of the piano. You can be a little creative with that. You know, this tune, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, a tisket, a tasket, a green and yellow basket. I wrote a letter to my love, and on the way I dropped it. So, believe it or not, Ella Fitzgerald did a great version of that, and you can do like a great kind of a boogie woogie. Whatever, I'm just kind of goofing around right now, but you know, a lot of these songs you can be creative with. You can play it straight, or you can add that jazz 8th note. Take some liberties with the melody. And again, for my Italian audience, I will say that my garden is flourishing, and I am growing. I just last night, for the first time, I had what we call in America spigarello, which I believe is actually not quite the word. It's spigariello. I think there's an extra syllable in there, but it's kind of like a leafy broccoli. Not a rapini. People think it's a rapini, but it's its own thing. And there's a lady at the farmer's market, nice lady at the farmer's market that imports seeds from Italy, and she sold me these starts. So I was very excited. I harvested them for the first time and steamed them, and they were fantastic. Okay, until next time, it's Jonathan at the Piano Lesson. See you next week. Bye-bye.